What's up, guys? Ben here, bringing another video today. I'm sorry for the lag in videos. Just wanted to take the last week off. I had a friend in town, was helping him look at apartments, and just wanted to kind of get set for what is going to be a really busy period coming up. We've got essentially 3 weeks of qualifiers, got Major 5, then we got like a week and a half off, and then champs. So it's gonna get really busy here as we get to like the last 5 or 6 weeks of the season. But talking about next season in the off season, Jacob Hale has released some work that he's done to go ahead and compile a list of free agents. So let's talk about the potential offseason we have in front of us. What it may mean for some of the top teams and top players in terms of roster moves after champs. All right, so if y'all remember last year, when I first started out like streaming, making content, I did a list like this. I put in my bio and we talked about it a lot, and it was very helpful in kind of understanding how the offseason was going to set up. It's been a little bit trickier this year, and I was chatting with Jacob on the side, and he was kind of already under a project of really diving into each team and each org, talking to people and trying to figure out who's going to be a free agent, who is not. Unfortunately, this year, the CDL player tracker hasn't necessarily really been filled out at all, which hasn't really helped with the public available information. So I know Jacob's done a lot of work on the back end to kind of compile this information. So let's take a look at his sheet. I think as always, I want to kind of spell out here sort of his tweet, sort of a little bit of like a caveat, and we'll get to it on the sheet. There are a couple of situations which are a little bit funky, and there's also a possibility that some of the information is incorrect. So if there's any big changes to the tracker, we'll probably do like another video probably in between Major 5 and Champs, but let's dive in. All right, so these are all 12 CDL teams, and these are their current contract statuses for this season. So I'll kind of go top to bottom, and then we'll take a look at the, final unrestricted free agent list and kind of talk about the key players. So Atlanta FaZe, I've talked about this on my stream, but essentially they've been in a cycle of 1+1s for a while. I think the way it generally works is the org picks up their +1, and then they renegotiate the contract. Everybody signs a new deal. Everybody gets a pay raise. They've been doing that cycle for a while, and we'll talk about what it means when we look at the unrestricted free agent list. On the ROKKR side, obviously you have pretty much their core starting lineup signed new deals when they sort of built this team in the offseason, and Fame and Real had their options extended, so they could potentially be free agents going into the offseason unless they, again, have signed a new deal that we don't know about. Boston's kind of a fun one. You have a bunch of different statuses of contract situations. Now, there is a player not listed here, which is Cramp. I assume that's probably like a 1+1 or a 2+1. Either way, he's not going to be a free agent going into this offseason. New York, similar to ROKKR, they pretty much signed new deals, and Kiz is the free agent essentially upcoming because he had signed a 1+1 last year. Florida, pretty much new deals across the board because it's a newish team, so no surprises there. Vegas, again, same thing, 1+1s because pretty much everyone on the team is new except for Donnie. On the LAG side, this is an interesting one. You had RSeason Sports sign 3-year deals, which are 2+1s, 2 years plus a team option, it looks like, and then everybody else is on a 1+1. So theoretically, everybody in LAG is under contract, but obviously org situation can make things funky. Seattle, pretty much everybody's gonna be a free agent. That's gonna be a key topic we're gonna talk about in a second. LA Thieves did not re-sign new deals this season, so they may hit the market this season, although I expect that LA Thieves will re-sign some of these players. We'll get to that in a second. Now, the OpTic Texas side is a little bit funky, so we got to talk about this one. So, Ant, aka Shotzi, signed a new deal in the offseason, so he's locked in. Ook, it seems like, signed a 1+1, and they brought him in January, February, whenever he had signed that deal. Bruce, aka Dash, his option extended over the summer when all that stuff went down, so he's actually technically a free agent. Looks like Dan Ghosty signed a 1+1. Again, this is per Jacob Hale's reporting when he signed a new deal. The Illy situation's a little weird, and I want to kind of talk about this. And I've talked about this on my stream. So this is what Jacob Hale's note has in here. I had been told that Illy's contract with OpTic had been terminated, but I do not now believe this to be accurate. That said, I've struggled to knuckle down anything certain for safety. I'm assuming option extended. So the Inter situation is weird. We've been in every event this year, and I have not seen Illy since Boston. So he was not at the OpTic Major in Dallas, and he was not at the event in Columbus like last week. He's not really been the sub for the team, because if you're the sub, you got to be there. You got to do IT checks. Like, you got to be in the works just in case you got to sub in. And I assume that, like, I saw Rambo Ray there at OpTic Major 3, so maybe he was a sub. I didn't see any additional players for OpTic at the last major, so I'm going to assume like JP was technically their sub. But yeah, I don't know what's going on with Inder. If someone knows, let me know, but it seems like maybe he's still signed, but not an active sub. Like they're just paying out his salary, trying to do the right thing, obviously, and kind of keep paying him. But it doesn't seem like he's really kind of involved with the team. London on the 1+1s. We've talked about the London 1+1 situation before. They're likely not going to pick up the option on any of these players. They're all going to be free agents in the offseason. And Toronto signed a variety of new deals over the years. Again, they do it similar to Atlanta FaZe. They don't really want their players to hit the market, so they give them the pay raises and keep them locked in and give them, aka the team, the option to go ahead and make changes rather than the players. So that's basically my kind of sum of sort of the current list. So let's take a look at the list of unrestricted free agents. All right, so let's take a look at the options list first, and then we'll talk about the UFAs. So I don't really think that anyone on the Atlanta FaZe side is likely going to hit the market. Even if, say, Atlanta FaZe moves on from Slasher, they probably will still pick up his option, maybe a game release option, which is an availability to the teams to kind of have a short-term ability to pick up the option, the team option on the player. Again, assuming that they move on from any of these players, but I assume none of them are going to hit the market. Nero and Big Wake is interesting. I would expect Big Wake to be picked back up. Nero is probably a little bit more of a question mark, but again, I expect at worst, Nero is probably a game option pickup. Priesta, interesting one. I think New York's been playing recently better. But again, Preston's someone that I think also will probably get a game option, or they may run it back with them next year. ROKKR's interesting. I really don't know what ROKKR are going to do. And I think the reason for that is if they struggle and they don't make champs, or they get 8th and they clean house, especially in the front office side, they may have different ideas about what they want to do with this roster. So, and I would assume that they'll bring some of these players back, but it's hard for me to speculate without knowing kind of the future of the situation. Florida is likely going to pick up a couple of these players depending on how they do sort of at the end here with their player evaluation. But I don't think they're going to pick up all the options on all their players. If we talk about the LAG, Jodeci's Exalt situation, again, that's a question mark because I don't know what the org situation is like with LAG. So a lot of questions there. And a couple of those players could be interesting free agent targets for people if they are on the market. Seattle and Gwyn's an interesting one. My guess is they probably will not pick up his option. And then if they want to bring him back next year, re-sign him at a later date. This would give them a couple of months of not paying him and give them some salary relief. I don't agree with that strategy. I feel like you should re-sign him from the beginning. I hate when teams don't pick up a sub right away, but if they got to save a few bucks, that's likely what they're going to do. Vegas is kind of hard to predict. I really don't know what Vegas want to do next season. So looking at these 3 players and the potential for them to hit the market, we'll have to see how things go down the stretch here if Vegas qualify for champs. I'm going to hold on the who can go see thing. Let's talk about that with Dashi here in a second. Asim, Yuli, Nasty, and Scraps. Again, I likely think that all 4 will hit the market and see if London re-sign them. And then Hicksy's an interesting one with Toronto. I think that entirely depends on how the team does. They likely will maybe pick him up as a game option, but we'll see if, I would say that he's the weakest player on the team right now. And if Toronto want to upgrade going next season, they could pick him back up and make him a sub. All right, let's talk about the OpTic stuff. Now let's talk about sort of like unrestricted free agents and kind of wrapping this whole who ghosty, Dashi, Illy question mark situation. I think really what OpTic wants to do entirely depends on how they play at the end of the season. I know it's not like a crazy concept. I know that's pretty obvious, but I can see OpTic doing a lot of different things in the offseason depending on if they win or don't win champs. If they get in the grand final and lose, or they get blown out over the next 2 events. I think it's kind of hard to say because for me, on the outside, all 3 of the players here other than Illy have, I think, justified their roster position at OpTic over the recent months. I think Hook's been playing really well, although I know he kind of didn't play as good at LAN. Like online, he's been really good. And I think Kyler's definitely trying to play to keep his spot. I think Dan Goshi's been a great pickup and someone they really shouldn't let go because he's going to go make another team way better and provide a lot of intangibles, leadership, comms. I know his slaying at times isn't like superstar level, but I thought he actually played really good this split. So, and then Dashi's been incredible. I think, when I've talked to Bruce, I think again, and we've talked about this on my stream, like I think he's been self-reflective and working on the issues that he had. So if he keeps taking a whack at that, I don't really see OpTic moving on from him, even if maybe he's not entirely a part of the plans next year, which again, I'd be super, super surprised. They probably will try and pick him back up. But again, he's a UFA, so that would be very interesting to see if there's other people out there for him. So again, the summation of the OpTic thing is just like, I think it really depends on where they place, because if they win, they're going to probably keep most of the team together. But if they don't, I could see them going a lot of different directions. And because I think there's a decent amount of players who could hit the market. So let's talk about the unrestricted free agents. I think really the key players in this class are Pred and Sib. and the LA Thieves guys. So the entire LA Thieves team is unrestricted free agents as far as we know. I don't know if maybe they're trying to re-sign some of them after their event win. Doubtful. I think Thieves want the leverage, I would assume, to sort of re-sign some of these guys and maybe try and get them to take a little bit of a discount. I guess the org wouldn't have a lot of leverage right now if they try to extend them because the team just won. It's all in the player's bag. But anyway, you look at these players on Thieves, Envoy, Kenny, Draws, Octane, like they could be amazing players in any other team. So it entirely depends on how Thieves plays at the end of the season and what the management wants to do with this roster. I could see a majority of these players coming back. I could see all of them coming back. Again, depends if they get first or eighth at champs. Now on the Seattle side, everybody's been talking about Pred and Dante, aka Sib. I swear for like 5-6 months now in terms of where these players are going to go. In question, I think depends on, again, if Thieves play really well at the end of the year, FaZe play well at the end of the year, and OpTic, because I think those are the 3 tier 1 destinations that Pred could go to, right? Teams that I think have really good coaching staffs, premier orgs in terms of brand development for Pred, and the ability to win. And so I would say the OpTic's probably at the top of that. And I think the speculation, the community discussion around Pred is definitely right. I think OpTic's the top option. But if Thieves and FaZe are all, making changes too, like I don't think it's going to be an easy conversation. As for Sib, I think it's a little bit more nuanced because I think that whereas for OpTic, it's clear that he would slot in for Hook. For Pred, it's clear that maybe he replaces Kenny on LA Thieves. For FaZe, maybe they move Sib, they move Sib to a flex and they bring Pred in as a sub to run with the BZ. I think with Sib, it's a little bit more of a complicated fit. Like for Thieves, Draz and Octane have been 2 of your best players. Like you're really going to drop one of them in the offseason? I don't think so. On the OpTic side, like you got Dashi and Ghosty kind of holding down the ARs. You're really going to drop both for Sib. And then on the FaZe side, you could drop Austin for Dante. You're going to lose a lot in leadership, a lot in comms, and someone would need to step up. So I think it's a little bit less clear on the Sib side. Now, the other kind of potential option for Pred and Sib that I haven't seen discussed a lot is what if they stay, right? You look at this free agent class, you look at the potential players that could be available, and then you also consider players that can get bought out. And it becomes a question if maybe Thieves, OpTic, FaZe aren't making the changes you want. And maybe the best team you can build is on Seattle. That's definitely an option. I've asked around the league on kind of what people think about this, and I've gotten some interesting responses. One is that there are a number of people that believe that Seattle probably may be willing to write the biggest check for Pred, like pure salary, biggest check, because of how big of a player he is, how good he's playing, and how they really need him as an anchor, because if he leaves, Sib leaves, it's really Lamar and Mac or maybe no one trying to build a team from scratch, and it's going to be very difficult. I think then the other side of it though is, and this is a question that I've been raised a lot, is what players would either one or both of them be able to recruit to them, the team, right? Because Mac's definitely under a microscope in terms of his performances and his decision making. We talked about last event, the hotel S&D, all that. And Lamar, I like Lamar, but again, you have a pack-a-punch opportunity always with accuracy, as Ake says. As good as Lamar brings leadership and intangibles and all that, like slaying, you're never really going to get crazy from Lamar other than during Ramadan, I guess. So that's a potential option. I know that there have been conversations, as always, between players about what next season looks like. And I think that there's been some, or I have on good knowledge that there's been some discussions about players potentially and their interest moving to Seattle. I don't know how real it is. I don't know how thorough those conversations are, but I know there's been some checkups on whether or not players might consider joining a project where Pred and Sib kind of clean house. So keep an eye on that. I still think when it comes to Pred though, that OpTic's probably his tier 1 destination. It's the best fit for the brand. In terms of the plug and play possibility, it makes a lot of sense. But Thieves and FaZe, I think, are next kind of on the list if those teams are making changes. So yeah, other than that, I mean, the UFA unrestricted free agent list is kind of interesting. You got players like Temp, Vivid, and Kiz, who I think could definitely look better on some other teams. And then obviously, as we see with Rail and Fame, I don't know what ROKKR is going to do. Also don't know why they're the different color from this side. But anyway, all that aside, ROKKR is a big question mark on what they want to do in the offseason. So that's a team I'm looking at. So we have a very interesting unrestricted free agent class. I wouldn't say that's infinitely deep at the moment, but once we get to the option period, which will be about a week or so after the season, I think a week or two, that might kind of add some additional players to this pool and make things really spicy. But between the possibility of OpTic, Thieves, Seattle, ROKKR, Boston, I think there could be some potentially really cool changes going on. And we'll revisit this as we get closer to the season, but there's a really a taste of what we might see in the offseason coming up. So yeah, that was sort of my review of the sheet. I'll link it in the comments so you guys have it. And we'll kind of, again, revisit this at one point, I think after Major 5, and kind of talk on maybe some other potential changes coming down the line. We shall see. But let me know in the comments what you guys think of the video. Like if you enjoyed. Coming up this week, we're going to talk a little bit about the MVP race. I'm going to do my breaking point team tomorrow, do my Major 5 week 1 predictions. And yeah, some more content coming up. So excited for that. As always, guys, we'll see you on the next video.